I still remember the day when we found out that we were expecting our first little baby. We were overcome with joy. We were just about to celebrate our first wedding anniversary, and to find out that we were expecting came as such a sweet and unexpected surprise. Telling our family about the addition soon to come was one of the happiest moments we had experienced.
That moment of happiness was soon to turn into our saddest. I learned that I was high risk for something called trisomy 18. In my early stages of thinking, I thought, well, if I'm at a high risk, what could I do to lower my risk? I soon learned that, well, this risk couldn't be lowered. I had to be put through more tests to determine if my baby did in fact have trisomy 18.
We were confused about this syndrome that we had never heard before, so we turned to the largest source of information we all know of, the internet, and we discovered the ugly truth about trisomy 18. Children with this condition are often labeled as incompatible with life by medical professionals. Our hearts were crushed. Our baby was fighting to live even while in the womb.
In the next few weeks, after painful tests emotionally and physically, we found out that we were having a boy, Charles Patrick. The tests also confirmed that he did have trisomy 18. I've never felt such guilt. All I wanted to do was to save my baby. I wanted to fix him because that's what mommies do. We fix things. I was helpless and at the mercy of the ever-ticking clock that could be his last minute, and anxiety became the unwanted visitor in my daily life. Finally, after a couple of weeks of overwhelming sadness, I reached out to God for the faith and hope to see me through this. I will never forget that day sitting on my front steps. It was as if God reached out, gave me a hug, and said, "Cheer up, the fight's not over yet." And I did that. And I knew then, at that moment, that my baby was still alive and I needed to stop being so sad about it. I changed my attitude. I had doctor appointments every 3 weeks for ultrasounds and blood tests. My son was still living. I watched his heart on a black and white screen beat as hard as it could, and my son was still living. I felt his kicks, and I counted each and every one. My son was still living. Our son was a fighter, and I needed to be one too.
When the time came, Charles Patrick was well known by friends and family, and he had already beaten the odds he'd been given. April wasn't expected to carry him past 30 weeks, and at week 39, the time had come for him to be born. We weren't ready, but I'm not sure we would ever have been ready. We checked into the hospital, and both of us were riddled with anxiety. As brand new parents, we didn't know what to do with a brand new baby, much less a brand new baby with severe disabilities. We felt clueless about how to bring such a fragile child into this world, but the perfect people were placed in our path to help us with every decision we had to make.
I still to this day call them my angels. They were not just people. They were picked perfectly to help us along the way. I was constantly questioning what we should do and if we were making the right decision. And Casey just looked at me and said, "Hey, no regrets." We looked at each other and knew that whatever decision we made, it was a decision that we made together, and we would not regret it. After a couple of hours of labor, my doctor came in to do a routine ultrasound and check on our little boy. After looking at this miraculous beating heart on a little black and white screen for so many weeks, I looked at that same beautiful figure sitting very, very still. It was like we were watching a video and I was waiting on the doctor to press play. I waited for his little heart to pick back up and to start beating again. But it didn't. He was gone. After a long day of labor, Charles Patrick was born into this world in silence. It was the sweetest and saddest silence we'd ever heard. The nurses whisked him around the room as if he were still here. They gooed and gawed over his little button nose. It made me feel more human. Remember those angels? The nurses were angels because they made me feel like a mom. A new mom that had just had her first beautiful baby. I did leave the hospital feeling less. I was less a child that was supposed to be with me. Instead of leaving the hospital with a baby, I left empty-handed.
Even though that was the hardest day for April and I, fast forward to today, where here we are with 3 beautiful, healthy children that we enjoy each and every day of our lives with. They know their oldest brother, Charles Patrick, and we speak of him often. March of Dimes gives families hope. All babies deserve a fighting chance. Not all of them will win the fight, but all of them will receive the hope.
After all that we've been through, we just want to say thank you to everyone who played a part in our story, because we are just one of many.